Hey y'all, this is Darren Van Dam, and you're watching Flick Connection. And in less time than you normally spend scrolling for something to watch every night, I'm going to tell you about 10 incredibly underrated movies you can catch for free right here on YouTube. That's right, these movies are all available for free right here on YouTube. I put a full list in the top pinned comment along with links so you can start watching these movies right away. Thanks to Incog for sponsoring this video. We'll talk more about them in a little bit, but first I want to start with my number 10 pick on this list, Cleaner. Now, if you did not know this, if someone is murdered in your house or there's a particularly bloody incident, you are actually responsible for cleaning up the crime scene after the police are done with it. Or rather, there are services that will do this for you. In Cleaner, Samuel L. Jackson plays one of these guys who will come in and sterilize and clean up all the gunk after something horrible has happened. But one day he cleans up the wrong mess and he's actually being set up for something, and this ends up being a really interesting thriller. And you don't get to see Samuel L. Jackson in a bunch of leading roles like this. He's always doing these huge movies, and when he does smaller movies, they tend to be kind of strange and unusual. Cleaner is kind of unusual, but it's also just a straightforward character from Samuel L. Jackson. You've also got Ed Harris and Eva Mendes both doing really good roles. While this is a work of fiction, I think anyone who loves true crime content could really get into Cleaner. Now, I do have some strange movies on this list, mainly because YouTube is offering some really bizarre cult classics right now. My next pick is titled The Swarm.
We have visual contact.
Identify.
A black mass, sir. A moving black mass.
Yes, Michael Caine actually stars in this, and it is about a giant swarm of killer Africanized bees. This was released in 1978 and definitely feels like it. And this is, in fact, a bee movie. I mean, it does star Michael Caine. It's not like it's got a bunch of bee actors in it, but just the setup and the execution is all fairly silly, yet the movie does take itself pretty serious, as it was a little more serious back when this released. And The Swarm actually exists somewhere in the chasm between disaster movies like The Edge of Tomorrow and really campy movies like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. Another kind of campy sci-fi horror movie is Man's Best Friend from 1993. This movie is about a genetically engineered Rottweiler that actually escapes from a lab, and a family actually takes this dog in and loves it, not realizing that its killer instincts are soon about to take over. Now, the movie definitely feels like it's from 1993. In fact, this is one I remember when I was a teenager. If I found this on late at night when I was channel surfing, I'd stop and watch it. And the dog does a lot of the things you might expect. He attacks a mailman, chases a cat up a tree, you know, that kind of stuff. This one's kind of a mix between Beethoven and Cujo. Not quite as good as either, but still kind of a wild 90s flick. Now, the opposite of Man's Best Friend has got to be robocalls and spam emails, but today's sponsor, Incog, can help you eliminate those. Now, I have been using Incog for over a year now. I continue to use it because they have eliminated spam emails, which was a huge problem for me. It just wasted a lot of time and they got in my way. And my goodness, was my phone ringing off the hook. Just over a year ago, it was nonstop. All day I was getting calls. Incog has brought them to a complete halt, and they did a big chunk of it in just a couple of weeks. Your personal data is definitely being sold online, mostly to data brokers. But you do have the right to protect your privacy, and you can request that these data brokers remove your information, and they do have to comply. The problem is, it would take you forever to contact all of them and to stay on top of it, because they are not likely to comply at the first request. Incog handles all of this for you. Here's one of my latest reports. You can see they've contacted almost 200 data brokers to remove my information, and well over 100 have already done it. There's still some in processing, but I don't receive hardly any spam calls or emails anymore. You do have to give them some information because they need to know what information they're trying to pull off of all these websites, but once it's done, you can completely forget about it and they will continue to work on your behalf. They're able to do all of this for you for a really great price, but for a limited time, my viewers can save an additional 60% off when they go to my link in the video description and use my code FLICKC. I mean, the amount of calls and emails I was getting just seemed criminal to me. I'm super happy with the results I got with Incog. If you want similar results, go to my link in the description, use my code FLICKC to get 60% off. It's a great deal, but speaking of great stuff, let's talk about the remaining movies on this list. Next up, we've got kind of a sleeper sci-fi movie, one that isn't overtly sci-fi until you get a little ways into it, and then ends up having this really subtle touch that is almost perfect in Midnight Special.
It's time. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now in this movie, Michael Shannon plays a father to a young boy who seems to exhibit some sort of supernatural powers. Yet instead of this going in a typical direction, Michael Shannon is actually taking his son on the run. He's afraid of what might happen to him if the wrong people catch him. And it all feels very grounded and realistic until you get further along in the story where it really reaches and ends up going in a fairly fantastical direction, yet it works because of how grounded everything else was all the way throughout. Michael Shannon's amazing in this movie. Joel Edgerton is fantastic. They actually make a really great pair. The young boy is a fantastic actor. Adam Driver has a little role in this. Sam Shepard. I mean, it's a really cool flick. This is actually from the same director as Mud. It's got kind of a similar tone for the first half, and then again it goes into this sci-fi direction that's ultimately really beautiful, interesting, and it's very unlike any other sci-fi movies I've seen, which always earns big points from me. Now next up, we've got kind of an action comedy that actually stars Mark Wahlberg and The Rock, yet I think this is just ultimately an exceptional crime film, and it was directed by Michael Bay. It's titled Pain and Gain.
Oh, they got my toe, Danny. They got my toe. I know, Jesus.
Now, I'm not gonna trash Michael Bay movies here. He's done quite a few that I actually love to death, but his lower budget efforts, or at least low budget for Michael Bay, which is tens of millions of dollars, not hundreds, they end up being my favorite movies of his. Pain and Gain is no exception. You follow a couple of meatheads played by Mark Wahlberg and The Rock, which is pretty easy to get into. They both do such a great job playing these dumb yet sort of lovable idiots. But this is also based on a true story. They try to kidnap someone, hold them for ransom. They have no idea or experience or any knowledge of how to do anything like this. They obviously ham the whole thing up, and it ends up being a really wild ride. The Rock is exceptionally funny in this movie, so is Mark Wahlberg. And as much as I love Anthony Mackie, he's never been funnier than he is in Pain and Gain. And then Tony Shalhoub from Monk, he's amazing. He's fantastic. I don't know why we don't see him in more movies. But Pain and Gain has got such a great balance. It's funny, there's a little bit of action, and there's some very heavy moments in this as well. And the movie, quite frankly, earns all of it.
Oh man, I watched a lot of movies, Paul. I know what I'm doing.
Now I've got 5 more movies on this list, but I do want to take 1 minute to tell you how these free movies work on YouTube so you can hunt some of them down yourself. They're fairly hidden. In fact, YouTube offers movies for purchase, and they're a little easier to find than these free ones. But what you want to do in the search bar on YouTube is type in YouTube Primetime Movies, and then just look for the one that says that they're free. At that point, I'm telling you, it's complicated. You want to look for a View All button. It's going to be different on different devices, but it should work pretty much like this. Now, you've got the full list of all the free movies currently available. And again, it can be very difficult to find on some devices. Some won't even let you get to this page, like smart TVs might not. You might need to find them with a computer or mobile device and then search for that movie on your smart TV. That's why I took a minute to explain this to you. Also, YouTube tends to include some movies that are edited for TV. But you will see that with the rating. If it's rated R, most of the time it's the original R-rated version. If you see TV-MA or TV-14, that means it is a version that was edited for most likely cable television, which means they have some potty words and a few things cut out. It's not ideal, but hey, all of these again are completely free. And YouTube always has a list of about 100 movies or so, and they change from month to month. But let's move on with the top 5 on this list because there's some wild ones, including my next pick, The Last Dragon.
Are you out of your mind?
The Leroy Green I'm looking for is a little punk who thinks he's a kung fu master.
I am no master.
which is famously like one of the worst martial arts movies ever made. However, it holds up as an incredibly funny and fun, campy martial arts movie experience. The acting's terrible, the music is ridiculous, the costumes are also ridiculous. The plot, some of the fighting, all of it is just kind of insane in a really funny way. And it's a beloved classic, so it's been remastered and really been taken care of all of this time. And there were a lot of movies like this one made back then, most of them completely unwatchable. The Last Dragon, though, is just a real gem from this genre. My number 4 pick is one I've watched fairly recently and just can't believe this didn't hold up as a more enduring classic, maybe because it stars Mel Gibson in Maverick. It's worth noting they also have Mad Max and a whole bunch of other movies I love to recommend. They just didn't make this list of underrated flicks. But Maverick is a fantastic and fun Western from the 90s. This has actually got a PG rating. It's fairly family friendly, but it's also a pretty good guy movie as well. Mel Gibson's character is fantastic in this. There's a lot of poker playing and gun slinging and just some sharp dialogue in this as well. I mean, it is an all-out comedy, but it's also got touches of movies like Casino Royale, as the movie climaxes with like this big poker game on a riverboat cruise. Danny Glover's got a little Lethal Weapon cameo in there, and it's just a well-rounded, all-around fun time of a movie. Like I said, I'm surprised it hasn't held up and been more of a classic over the years, because I think it definitely deserved it. Okay, now, despite having a huge cast with people like Brad Pitt and Marion Cotillard, and despite it being an epic World War II drama, Allied just never got enough love. Now, this is actually directed by Robert Zemeckis, who has done just cutting-edge movie after cutting-edge movie. This easily being one of his most underrated flicks of all time, but Brad Pitt rarely picks a dud, and Allied is a real banger if you give it a chance. And it's not a slow burn either. This movie starts off with a real bang, and then ends up being just a powder keg of a story. So the setup here is that Brad Pitt and his wife both sort of act as special agents for the British military during World War II, and then someone suggests to him that his wife is likely a spy. Rather than just take that at face value and turn his back on his wife, the mother of his children, the woman he loves more than anything in the world, he decides to investigate and try to figure out if it's true or not before he takes any actions on it. Like I said, there's a fair amount of action in this movie, but it's also this incredibly tense drama about this husband trying to determine whether or not his wife has been deceiving him his entire life, and it's all expertly directed, incredibly well acted. Movie has a beautiful look to it, and it's high drama stuff. If you somehow missed it, it's easily one of the best movies currently available for free on YouTube. Now, my number 2 pick is kind of a divisive movie. Some people really don't like it, and others absolutely love it. I kind of fall into that camp when it comes to What Dreams May Come. I'm a big fan of Robin Williams, not just as a comedy actor. I actually really love a lot of the dramatic roles he's done over the years. He didn't do a ton of them, but all the ones he did are amazing. This is no exception. And it is a downer of a movie. I mean, it starts off with both of his children dying, and then his wife committing suicide. That's just the setup for What Dreams May Come. Then when he dies in a horrible accident, again, downer of a movie, he actually ventures to heaven and hell and encounters his children and his wife, and it is just a stunning voyage, again, into heaven and hell. The depictions of both are absolutely incredible. A lot of it is based on old artwork, but his wife was a painter, so it all makes sense, and again, visually, the movie is absolutely incredible. The story itself is a little bit shallow in the sense that there's not a whole lot of twists and turns, but the depth of all the emotion and everything in this movie is insane, especially if you get into it. If you are not in a place where you can handle, again, a real downer of a movie, don't watch What Dreams May Come, but if you can, I'm telling you, you're in for a wild visual ride. And then my number 1 pick is an even wilder visual trip. One of the most visually stunning movies from the 1980s, probably like top 3 or 4, Ridley Scott's Legend. Now, the version on YouTube is the theatrical cut, not the director's cut, but in this case, there's actually not a huge difference between the two. The theater cut looks incredible on YouTube, and this movie is filled with so many stunning visuals, and they all come down to incredible miniature work, costumes. Tim Curry plays Satan in this movie with more makeup than he probably really needed, but it looks incredible. The locations and the atmosphere, the entire feel of this movie is unlike anything else. And that's before I even get around to mentioning it stars Tom Cruise, like a young Tom Cruise. And it's this beautiful fantasy story that also ventures into hell. But my goodness, you gotta remember, in the 80s like this, everything you're seeing is in camera. There's little to no digital effects whatsoever. And Legend is just a breathtaking journey. It's really kind of a shame that they don't make more movies like this today. I mean, honestly, Dune is about as close as it gets, and I enjoy the Dune movies, but it is kind of funny to watch people freak out over how visually stunning they are. It's been done before. They just don't really do it that often anymore. But that is the list. Don't forget to check the top pinned comment for the full list of all these titles, along with other places you can currently stream these movies if you don't want to deal with the YouTube ads. Don't forget to go check out that Incog link in the video description so you can start protecting your privacy today. But I will keep making these episodes as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for checking out this special YouTube video, and you will see me on the next one.